fans agree that none have been more smoking than those powered by steam. Like this beauty, built in 1924, the Baldwin Company's number 90. Still running on the Strasburg Rail Road in Strasburg, Pennsylvania. Today, it's a tourist train, so it's still possible to climb on board for a ride back to when locomotives like this helped pull America full steam ahead into the 20th century.
Now we're ready to depart. Now I'm going to release the brakes and apply steam to the cylinders through the throttle. Now it's my job not to spin the wheels, so I want to just gradually apply power.
Applying power requires teamwork between the engineer and the man to his left shoveling coal from the tender into the boiler, the fireman.
Now the fireman has to get his fire nice and hot. By experience, he knows when to shovel. It's a coordinated effort. When I need the steam, he has to already have planned on producing it. In the past, you'd burn about 1.5 tons of coal per hour, and a fireman would be on duty for 12 hours. They could burn upwards of 12 to 15 tons of coal a day, be shoveling by hand from the tender.
Igniting coal in the boiler is the first step in producing power. Since our camera would be roasted by the 2,500-degree temperature in there, the best way to see how a steam engine works is by squeezing into a typical locomotive boiler. This one is currently under repair inside the Strasburg Rail Road mechanical shop.
Fireman throws the coal through the hole in the rear, lands in this box. This box is called the firebox. Surrounding the firebox is water. The water is all the way around here and is normally carried up to here. It always has to be above the top of the firebox. If it's not above the top of the firebox will melt. So the heat from the fire can heat the firebox steel, boil the water, create the steam that goes up into the steam space, goes up into the steam dome.
Within the steam dome is a throttle. When the engineer engages the throttle lever, steam is released into a pipe, where it travels to the locomotive cylinders. Inside the cylinders, the steam pushes pistons back and forth. The pistons drive piston rods, that in turn drive the locomotive's wheels. Regulating the steam pressure inside the boiler is critical. Too little, and the train loses momentum. Too much, and the boiler could explode. The steam boiler's design was inventive, but because coal is fed from the rear, it creates a problem for the engineer.
I can't see very well past this huge boiler. I have to lean out so I can see the biggest perspective ahead of the engine. I am constantly looking for anything that might obstruct us, including trees, including cattle, or anything else that might be problematic.
That's why locomotive designers invented the cow catcher. Okay, it doesn't exactly catch cows. It kind of muscles them aside. But the cow catcher can't shove aside the effects of the inevitable wear and tear that comes with a 100-ton locomotive thrashing around on 2-inch wide rails. Tires especially take a beating. Like a car, a locomotive tire is attached to a wheel. Except these tires are made of steel, and changing one takes some heat.
The tire of the steam locomotive is shrunk onto the wheel. So in order to remove it, we put the fire ring on, we heat the tire up probably to 400 or 500 degrees. As it gets hotter, it will expand, and eventually there'll be a gap between the tire and the wheel, and that tire will be able to swing and slip right off the wheel center.
Add a fresh steel tire to the wheel, and it'll be ready to roll. Easy enough inside the mechanical shop. But in the old days when things broke down out on the plains, the engineer did double duty as the mechanic.
The technology was constantly breaking down. The engineer had to be aware of any problem arising by both sound and vision.
And when that vision spotted something on the track, it was time to sound off. Every time the toot of a steam locomotive's whistle fills the air, it speaks in a unique yet universal language.
Now, every engineer does his whistling a little bit differently. You'll now hear a crossing signal, 2 longs, a short, and a long as we approach this crossing.
By the 1930s, the sounds of the steam locomotive began to fade as designers looked to new technologies. In 1934, Electromotive launched a line of diesel-electric streamliner locomotives that were easier to maintain and cheaper to fuel than the coal-fed steamers.